Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Paint by Minis. As always, my name's Adam, and in today's episode we are exploring the theme of Homebrew Space Marine chapters. Now, as this is my first Space Marine video on the channel, I thought we'd do something a little different, and instead of just doing a normal painting tutorial on some of the same old Space Marine chapters that are out there that we always see, we'd do something different and make our own. Now, I wanted to do a little bit more than just show you how I painted my Marines or how I converted my Marines. Instead, I want to split this into 3 different videos. In the first video, I want to go through some tips and tricks that I've got for creating your own Space Marine chapters, because although it sounds like a simple thing on paper, there can be quite a lot that goes into it, and there can be a lot of decision paralysis, and you end up getting completely stumped. So I'm going to show you a few ways you can narrow down all of this inspiration into one single army. And then in the next video, I'll show you how I went about converting my own Space Marines using kit bashing and finding different bits and bobs to make them a bit unique. And then in the final video, I'll show you the paint scheme for my own army. So for now, let's get started. So the first bit of advice that I could give to anyone who's looking to start their own homebrew chapter is just to look at everything that exists out there already. And I know this sounds like a pretty tall order, but there is an awesome resource online for this. On the 40k fandom wiki, there is this pictorial list of all the Space Marine chapters in alphabetic order. This is such a good tool to just scroll through and pick out a few chapters that really jump out to you. That way you can make a short list and really analyze the aspects of the army that stand out to you. Now, when you're doing this, don't just look at colour schemes, look at anything that really strikes your interest. It could be the symmetry or the patterns or even just the colour combinations. For example, when I was doing this process myself, there were 2 chapters that I picked out just for the aspect of asymmetry, which is where they had colours focused on one half of the armour and not the other. However, there was a completely different chapter that I picked out purely for the colour combinations that they used. Going through this process and really analysing other armies will help you identify what you actually want to include in your army. Hopefully by now you've narrowed down the idea of your army to a few individual characteristics that you want to continue with. So what you want to ideally do now is take those characteristics and just play with them a bit. Now, the best resource that I've found to do this is a free online tool at the Bolter and Chainsword called the Space Marine Painter. It is a little outdated now in that it has the old style Marines and all the paints that are listed are all of the old Citadel paints. But for a free tool that you can just pick up and play with fairly easy, it is completely worth the time. I would really recommend doing a good few iterations of your paint scheme. Play with different ideas, different styles, different patterns, different placement of colours, different shades of colour. Even if you think you've settled on one that you really like, save it, put it to one side and do a few more, because just being creative and doing lots and lots of different things and pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, you could discover a whole different side of an idea that you've never really thought of initially. Now, if you really want to practice on a Primaris Marine, there does exist copies of this Primaris planning form floating around on the internet. So if you're old school and you'd rather print it off and sketch, that's an awesome idea as well. Or if you want to just import it into Photoshop and do your thing there. However you end up doing it, just test as much as you can before you commit to actually buying any models or buying any paints, because you could end up disappointed, and this way you'll have a better idea going in. Model conversions and kit bashings are an awesome option for any homebrew Space Marine chapter. It's a great way to truly make your army unique. The best way to get ideas for conversions is to honestly head to the GW website and just look at any model kit. They've got awesome breakdowns of the sprues that you can look at and make a good decision before you buy anything. It's also a great opportunity to see how many items come on the sprues themselves, because if you're looking to convert 10 Marines but only 5 weapons come with the kit that you're looking at, then maybe you need to look at other options. While you're having a look at the GW website, you may notice that it's not super clear how the kits fit together, and they don't have any instruction manuals online, unfortunately. Thankfully, there are a few sites online like BitStore here, which has a full section dedicated to instruction manuals. You can browse through, click any link, and it should take you to an Imager link of the instructions in question. Have a look and see if the models that you've selected will even fit together. It's a really good way to save disappointment, trust me. I've been there. I've bought 2 kits, I've tried to fit them both and found that there is no way in hell that they're going together. So don't be like me and just do some research. Once you've found a few kits, you've looked at their instructions and sprues, you may notice that you don't actually need the whole box of miniatures. In situations like this, I use sites like Bitbox here, which I've personally used before. It's a great way to buy individual items or a few sets of items, but the negative here is that it is quite a popular site and you'll often find that a lot of individual popular items are out of stock. In situations like this, I will personally just hit up eBay. For example, for my Homebrew Space Marine chapter, I liked the Assault Intercessor shoulder pads and I could just not get them on Bitsbox. Luckily, there are a few options here on eBay for me to buy and I can get a pack of 5, pack of 10, whatever I need. Even with all the pictures in the world, it's sometimes hard to get a grasp of how the model actually fits together. This is where eBay also comes in super useful because you can just buy singles. It's not super cost effective if you break it down to like individual model pricing, but I'd much rather pay £6 for a single model and it turn out not to work than spend almost £40 on a box of models and then there's no use for them. So in summary of those tips there, number 1, research those chapters. The more you look online, the more you'll find, the more inspiration you'll get, and you'll discover things that you want to add to your homebrew chapter that you'd never even thought of. Tip number 2, test those ideas. The more you do ahead of time, the less frustration you'll have when you've got a paintbrush in your hand. And finally, tip number 3, plan ahead with your conversions. Buy singles on eBay, have a look at instruction manuals, have a look at the sprues. Just try and save yourself that frustration when you get a kit in and it just doesn't fit together the way you think it will. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really hope you found some useful tips in there, even if you're not planning to do a Homebrew Space Marine chapter. Now do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button because next time we're going to be looking at how I convert my own Homebrew Space Marines. Thank you so much for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video.